What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Essential Scares podcast, the show where we watch and play our way through horror to determine what is truly essential. I am your host, Corbin, and with me today is Alan.
Good evening.
Bobby.
What's up, Hausen?
And for the first time on Essential Scares, Taylor.
I don't know who you people are.
I don't know who we people are.
What's happening? What's happening?
We have got a great show ahead of us today. We're going to be talking Don't Breathe 2, the long-awaited sequel to the surprise 2016 hit and the directorial debut of Rhoda Sayagues, the writer of Don't Breathe 1 and 2. But before we get into all of that, Bobby has a spoiler warning.
I do. This will serve as your first one and only spoiler warning for the brand new film Don't Breathe 2. If you do not want this brand new movie spoiled for you, please skip to the time code ahead for our spoiler-free essential discussion. Don't Breathe 2 teaches you fundamental lore about its universe. Namely, morality is gauged entirely on whether you kill the dog or not. Corbin.
It's true. And also, whether or not you sell drugs.
True.
Right.
Facts.
What kind of terrible human being?
Yeah, no.
Absolutely.
That's the thing about both of these movies is if you take these movies together, it gauges whether or not you're a good person based on whether or not you commit crimes of desperation versus crimes of passion. Which crimes of passion are legitimately, I would argue, way worse, than crimes of desperation. Stealing from somebody because you're hungry, or selling drugs because it's the only way to get ahead in life. I can get that, but because your wife and daughter died, you're just gonna kidnap, rape, and murder people. I'm sorry, man. Shit like that happens every single day, and most people don't do that.
So most people don't also start with the whispery voice. You kind of lean into it after a certain point, I think.
Yeah, after 8 years, you just gain that voice, I think.
Yeah, that's actually what happens when you go blind, is you just get that voice.
Over time, it just develops into this raspy thing.
It was the least accurate part about Daredevil, the Netflix series. They were like, yeah, his voice sounds just normal. That's not how that works.
Well, no, my guy, he was young blind, so he's still hot and attractive. Now he's old man blind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Stick was blind and he sounded like that, so that works out.
See, now
they kept to the lore somewhat.
Yeah. Before we really get into it, Alan, I have a question specifically for you.
Okay.
Did you end up watching Don't Breathe 1?
No, I watched a 5-minute synopsis that walked me through everything.
I love that. Okay, so...
And...
Hilarious.
To add on to that, I still would have rather watched the first one than this movie. After watching that synopsis and this movie, I am more interested in watching Don't Breathe than Don't Breathe 2 ever again.
So
I'm going to say this.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is probably a fair thing to say. I feel like, and I might be wrong on this, I feel like any synopsis of Don't Breathe is going to give you a better movie than Don't Breathe. I am not a fan of this series whatsoever. Don't Breathe it's kind of clever, it's interesting, the twist is kind of fun, but it's just eh. Mm-hmm. It's popcorn horror, so you can't expect too much of it, but it's pretty good popcorn horror, but it's still popcorn horror. Don't Breathe 2 is just a toilet bowl that won't flush.
I would say I think that the first one has a lot of good points to it, right? I think that the first one played with morality in a fun way, right? Where I think the twist of the first one being the thing that made it everybody's a bad guy here, right? That was much more enjoyable, I think, for me than the second one, because in the second one, you know that everybody involved is a bad guy, but the movie doesn't really acknowledge that, almost on either side until the end. So it's oh, they're both bad, but neither of them are that bad. And then they're both really bad. And the messaging is very confusing in the second movie, I think.
Yeah, they should have. Okay, so a better movie would have made it where the one woman who's in the beginning doesn't die. Or like she gets skeeved out by the guys, but like drives away and is like totally okay the entire time. And like, so it's like, oh, so they're not bad, and like they're purposely not trying to kill, like, and like, except for the one, like, they can even have the one scene where, like, because they're trying to do the red herring where, like, Stephen Lang's character, the old man, is a good guy or whatever, even though we know he's not, where like where like they're trying to, like, he's trying to drown the kid out to get the kid out of the box or whatever. And like all of that could have worked, but like you had to make it at least ambiguous. But like all of those dudes were like bad from the fucking jump. Like they're like, we were dishonorably discharged from Iraq. and then they just fucking brain a dude with a hammer. And like, Iraq was an unjust war. That's fine. I'm pretty sure we could all agree on that. Even though, Saddam Hussein wasn't great, but like, we definitely didn't need to be there. All of those things, right? Yeah, I'm gonna take the radical centrist approach.
But the point is that like part of what made the first one enjoyable, right, is that you're looking through the eyes of the characters that the majority of the movie makes you believe are the bad guys, right? Yeah. So the first movie is kind of playing with this idea of like it's a reversal of the home invasion genre, right? The protagonists are the villains, and the villain is actually just the defender of the home, right? And then they play with it. But that's what makes the first movie interesting, and what makes the second movie has the exact opposite problem, because the home invaders are bad from the jump. It's the same exact concept, except the home invaders, you don't get their point of view, but they're also not scary, which means that now the movie's not scary at all because your point of view is the villain, and you lose like any like semblance of horror, while also like not really caring for anybody involved, because if you've seen the first movie, you know that everybody's a bad guy except for that little girl who's assuredly going to get away.
What about the dogs? We talked about the importance of dogs and morality, and I think that having the you want to know what happens to the dogs, and so when the one dog is killed, you're like, that sucks. Those guys are evil. And then when the guy goes and kills all of them, you go, yes, they deserve this because they killed the dog. And then when they also have a dog,
they killed. They also have a dog in their car right away.
Yeah, right. But anybody can do that. We've established that killing people doesn't matter. Killing people doesn't matter. That's just what you do. People do minor things.
I think that's a core issue with this movie. I read an article beforehand by the New York Times, right, and it talked about how there are 2 dogs in this movie and 2 women in this movie, and both women are killed, and only one dog is killed. And I think that is emblematic of what this movie thinks it is saying. And like, I'm sorry, I know that people get triggered when dogs die, but they killed that woman with no remorse, and that is simply worse than killing a dog.
And okay, so like they try to make it like it's like almost like weirdly like she's like a badass, but like she's still a fucking human being, and like I get it, right? The dog thing is like it's our natural, like we've evolved to like add dogs to our pack, right? Like we're a pack species. We've evolved to have that kind of like predetermined and
symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, well, dogs have evolved to have like they can raise their eyebrows, they have very expressive faces, so that we go they're like us, and they look at us and they go, we're like you, right? And so we have that kind of relationship with them. So we immediately go, they're so innocent, and they kind of, for both of those women, they kind of like try to strip that away, and they probably shouldn't have, because because like it kind of, like you said, it's very much like we care more about animals than we do 51% of the population of Earth. Like legitimately, like I and you started it, so I'll go with it. Like it's pretty fucked. Because like there is there is the damsel in distress, which is the daughter. Yeah. Right. There is the evil queen, which is the mother, and then there is the the sacrificial lamb, which is the other woman, right? Like, and those are like the 3 women characters who have any sort of substance in this entire movie.
Really... The better version of this movie? undoes the damsel in distress and flips it on its head and makes the blind man become the damsel in distress and lets the what's her name, Phoenix, kind of do the survival task that she fails in the very beginning of the movie to then save him. Like
absolutely,
that'd be such a more interesting.
Yeah, and that doesn't come up again. Yeah,
they absolutely spent way too much time on the fact that he was training her to be like blind without blind, for her to never really use that, except for that one pretty good one shot sequence at the very beginning of the home invasion. I admit was a very solid part of the movie.
I wrote that down. I was like, is this a one shot? Because
I don't think it's a real. I think there were like 2 points where they faked it, but it looks real and it was good.
Places.
Yeah,
like the one part where she's hanging. That's a big cut.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But
it looks real enough that you're like, oh, that's basically a one shot.
Yeah.
Like,
it works. It's really cool. Because like long sequences like that are really hard to shoot, right?
Right. And I also think that like if you had made her sort of like the heroine of the movie, maybe if she was a little bit older, she's like maybe just a little bit too young to be like the lead heroine. Make her a little bit older. And then it also gives you an opportunity to spend the movie actually redeeming the blind man, which this movie does. No, makes no attempt to do, because then
he does, because he saves her, so therefore he's better.
From me, I have murdered, I have raped.
Of course,
just the only mention of
if the movie was from Phoenix's point of view, you would have had that the whole time, because like she sees him as a good guy, right? So then you kind of can have this like unraveling of who he is, but because he's the main character and you already know he's a villain, like you never really get that.
But hey, progress is progress. Admitting that he raped, he never admitted it in the first movie.
That's true.
He just goes, I would never do that, and it's like, you did it, just not with your penis, my dude.
Yeah.
Like,
yep. So when I was watching that synopsis and I got to that point, the like perk up, and that sounds weird there.
Yeah.
Sorry, don't breathe one. The like, wait a minute now. I was like, okay, this just
like the blink gif, just
one hell of yes, exactly. Just that was unexpected, and that to me is
movie at all. That's the reaction that they're going for. So.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody in the audience is like, oh yeah, no,
and that's
why was I rooting for you?
It's a critical failing of this movie because there's nothing even close.
Don't even talk about it. Because you wonder, like, going into this movie, you wonder, how did they... Because, like, when Don't Breathe 2 is coming out, anybody who watched the first movie is kind of like, okay, so it's still about him, and he seems to not be the villain in this one. So are they going to address that? Is he going to start off seeming like the protagonist, and then it turns out that you have that unraveling where he is actually just as evil and does evil things? And then they just give up on that entirely, because like, it very easily could have gone that way with these characters, where he could have done some really bad shit.
Yeah, there's a more interesting angle, maybe where like the kidnappers, the home invaders, the movie does almost the opposite twist, where you think they're kind of like the villains, and then 80% of the way through the movie they're like, well, actually they're wholly good. Like there's nothing nefarious.
They're actually good dudes. They're all the one dude, like who was like, hey, I'm not cool with this. Yeah. And
that would be much more
even lazier.
Because then you think like, oh, the blind man's been killing all these guys, like no remorse, and they were actually the heroes of the movie. Like there's another movie where they're the heroes. I think that would have been much better instead of they're like cartoonishly evil.
Yep.
Like again, what a cooler movie would have, like, they could have still been meth heads. They could have done all of that, right? But instead of like the mom wanting to steal her daughter's heart, being like, I just want to spend the rest of my
I just want to be with my daughter.
My last few days.
I thought that's the route they were going,
and they just did.
That would have turned this movie from like what it's going to be rated at to what it could have been rated at.
And also like if they stayed meth heads, that also would have stayed in line with the morality of the first movie, which is that everybody involved has a dark side, but some people, like, there's still a level of gray, right? And so then it still would have been like, hey, like, these guys have problems, but they're clearly the heroes of the movie, which is what the first movie said.
And you could have had the only other good actor in this film, the dude with the weird mullet, like actually have a moment where like he beats the shit out of Stephen Lang because like he actually killed his literal brother, like, and there could have been like a really cathartic moment, like
Yeah, speaking of the dialogue in this movie is pretty bad.
You
like
killed
he's
my
like,
brother.
"Hold on, brother," and I was like, "Oh yeah," because they're like, they were soldiers, they're all brothers and stuff. Oh no, they're actually related because we all just call our brothers brother all the time. That's how I usually do it.
The worst part is he's got like this weird southern drawl. He's like, "I'm coming, brother," and then the other guy's like, "Yo, what up, yo?"
Yeah,
like
it's your boy.
I'm from born and raised, yo, and this is my brother.
But they have the same hair color, so therefore they're related.
It's very. It made me think very much of Walking Dead, like Daryl and Merle, like they're
having very disparate voices. Yeah.
I mean, if we're gonna talk bad lines, there's also the blind man. You have no idea what it is to be alone. It's like, okay, all right, Mr. Fucking melodramatic.
Okay.
Calm
you
down.
tell it to your 11-year-old daughter.
Exactly.
So Stephen Lang is a really good actor, right?
Oh, he's way better than this movie. He's way better.
Oh, absolutely.
He acts the shit out of this movie, right? There's that one line that I looked at Corbin and I'm like, so Stephen Lang's gonna try his best to carry this shit film, right? And it was just a one line. It was a one-word line. That's like the woman said the what is the actual actress's name?
I don't remember the actress's name because I don't know it.
Hernandez.
Hernandez. Okay.
It's actually I've got the cast list up. It's Stephanie Arcelia.
I feel like I recognize her from something, but I couldn't place it.
She says
TV,
something
maybe?
to the effect of like hey, you think you're a monster but you're not type thing, and he just goes like his voice like cracks and shit. It's like, thanks, like really super fucking quietly, and I'm like, that was really well fucking done. Like,
and I think there is something there where they kind of, if you look at this movie in a vacuum, the story is about like not knowing anything about this dude beyond the fact that he is a SEAL, right?
Yeah.
Then you think, okay, this is kind of like a story of this person who feels, she makes the comment about God is fair, right? So he feels that all the bad things that have happened to him or will happen to him are because of the things he has done.
Yep.
Sure. And so if you don't have the context of the first movie, you think, okay, this is a movie very much about like different people reacting in different ways to being veterans, to serving, and then kind of what happens after that. Because you have him as this.
Sorry, I mean you can even read.
No, yeah, you can further it, like you said.
Well, like when he mentions at the very end, like the only reference to the first movie at all is when he says, "I have raped," right? And like, okay, if you haven't seen the first movie and you know nothing about the movie, going further down your angle, like you can obviously just assume he's discussing like war crimes or something, right? Like something that like
precisely
like not the true evil of the first movie, but just like something much more relatably bad.
Like kind of like the oldest kind of story of like warfare and things that happen.
Do you think this is
a different movie
at first?
It seems like it, which is why when you said it was a different director, I'm like, oh, that must be why. And then it's like, oh, it's the same writer. It's like, now I'm confused as to why. Because you're the one who wrote the first one.
Yeah, he wrote.
And then you also wrote the second one.
Yep.
You'd think there'd be some thorough line there.
So the director of the second movie wrote the first and second movies, and he co-wrote it with both movies with the guy who directed the first movie. So like this is very much the same creative team, very much so.
So it can't be. It has to be.
It's
like
yeah.
It's just it definitely is.
Or they pitched a movie and they're like, well, can we just make it Don't Breathe 2? Because that movie did well. Like.
And then change a couple of elements, and we're like, yeah, look, now it's Don't Breathe 2.
Yeah, he's blind now. Like, and we'll make it the same place. It's in Detroit instead of the South. Like,
for sure.
But I do think if that was the intention, they definitely could have done more interesting things with the characters. Hernandez not dying would have been key. Like even like on both levels, right? Let's say they make this a more kind of like what happens after you're done being a soldier kind of thing. They should have kept her around at that point to be kind of the well-adjusted one of the bunch that seems to have done well for herself. She owns a business, like she's in a pretty good spot. And then from there, still having those same things at play where you have Stephen Lang as the evil guy, the blind man being evil, and then also the meth heads all being evil also, and then having her be the one to try and like make the difference and save the day, because that could have also been an interesting twist, is that at the end of it, like she saves the kid, and then he's after her because she has the kid, and it doesn't matter that all of this stuff has happened because she's trying to be that would kind of change it more to kind of like maybe a true sequel to the first one. But on the other avenue of being the kind of the deal of like how different people might come back and react, having it be that same twist of these guys are dishonorably discharged, but they're the good guys.
Yeah.
Having that same idea that this guy is a highly decorated Navy SEAL that people would look at and go, he's a war hero. But then having him be the same monster from the first movie compared to these guys who've been dishonorably discharged, who are going to be seen as not that and have taken to dealing meth to be able to kind of just make a living of some kind, because it is very difficult to get a job when you are dishonorably discharged.
Yeah.
So at that point,
the door's open.
It would make sense.
Because Breaking Bad has shown that being a drug dealer or a drug producer does not necessarily make you a bad guy, right? It can, right? But you typically have to have the evil in you from the beginning, right? Like Jesse Pinkman. He's not a bad dude. He just he's a man who struggled with it. Walter White's a bad dude, right? And this movie just goes, hey, that door's been open about being morally gray in bad circumstances, but let's just say fuck that. Like, everything is black. Everything is black and bad and not good, and you're gonna root for the guy who's the worst out of all of them, and you're gonna forget that happened, because we're gonna and can I just really quickly, there's a couple, there are 2 moments where I pulled a real Alan, and I had sour grapes about minutia in the
I was already planning on bringing up some stuff. Please go off, King. Okay, I'll back up.
Okay, and Alan, you can tell me if you agree with it. There are 2 major moments in this movie that fucking bothered me day one. And so full disclosure, me, Taylor, and Corbin watched this movie together last night in a theater. So they've all heard what I had to say before because I whispered to both of them. Step 1, 0% of all children ever want to go into an orphanage at all. And the fact that half of this movie is the child being like, oh man, an orphanage, let's go to that.
That sounds dope.
Nobody. I've been a child. I've grown up. I had friends who were foster kids. I grew up with a father who was a social worker. I know the foster system. I know orphanage systems. No kid wants to be there. They all want to feel the love of a parent, right? Everybody wants that. Even foster kids who have the love of a foster parent, they want that individual attention. It's stupid. It was a bad plot device, and Hernandez could have filled that role. And it's why would you make a fucking foster home the role when you have a mother figure literally right there?
Oh, because they wanted to kill her.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's no happy ending if she's alive. Or if she's dead and she's the mother figure. They have to have something else.
Yeah,
and it could have been your life there is actually so bad you would rather live in an orphanage. I thought that's the route they were going. That her existence was just so miserable that, that was a better option. But then it really is just, kind of like every sheltered child movie you've ever seen, where it's just I want to go and make friends, Papa. And he's like, no, you can't, because friends are evil and you'll die. And then he closes the door really loud.
No idea what it's like
to
be alone.
And from other than that, the way that they present this is that she has a pretty good life beyond the fact that she is can't go anywhere or do anything and is doing active survival training
For the record, she doesn't. Even
right, it's not great by any means, but that's absolutely kind of
terribly abusive, right? This little girl is suffering hardcore Stockholm syndrome, right? Just let's get that out. But that's not the other one. And Alan, I think this is the one that probably we all felt, but probably you and I felt the most strongly. He heard the bells. How the fuck did he not hear the gunshot that killed Shadow?
Yeah, it was silenced. The bells are not silenced.
As soon as he pulled the bullet out, I was like, he didn't hear that gun go off? Nobody heard that in the forest?
No, it was silenced because they shot the tree.
The shot that missed, I was like, how did he not hear that?
It was quiet. It's silence. Silencers are magic. You don't hear. Even if you have super Daredevil hearing, if somebody shoots with a silencer,
I'll go another layer deep on the gunshot, all right? He finds Shadow with smell-o-vision, apparently.
Yes.
He sniffs this fucking dog out.
Have you not seen Daredevil?
Okay, I'm not done yet. So,
okay.
He folds his money.
Not only should he have heard this shot, clearly, if he can smell a dead dog, you're telling me he can't smell gunpowder in the air? This is a Navy SEAL, someone who is inherently would know the smell of gunpowder in a gunshot. He would know this shit. On top of that, I have another one.
Dead dog probably smells
intense
than gunpowder.
I was gonna make that comment too.
So dead for
freshly dead dog?
20 minutes.
That's perfect time. That's plenty of dead dog time.
So.
It could. They're in Detroit. It could be hot. We don't know.
Okay, so also, did they choose Detroit because if you hear a fucking war zone happening outside, no one's gonna notice that?
No, they picked
Detroit.
Then they would have done Gary, Indiana.
Place in Detroit. Yeah.
Okay, my point still stands. You have a war zone happen on this man's property, and when it zooms out and this house is on fire, you see other houses.
Oh yeah.
You're telling me
he doesn't live in the middle of nowhere. Like, he has
that's business as usual. That just happens.
There's like a lot of gunshots going on right now, and I think I heard screaming, like a lot of screaming. Could you like send literally anyone?
Because those guys are cool with it, because they've been sitting in their houses and they're like, hey, remember when we heard all that crazy stuff at that house next door, and then those break-ins stopped?
Okay,
let's just say we didn't see anything.
So here's the thing, right? I don't know if you guys remember from the first movie. He lives in a derelict part of Detroit where like all of the houses on his block are apparently empty because like they made Detroit seem like a ghost town, even though
it's not. Yeah, it's big time on a recovery too.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. In 2021, Detroit, it's still not great, but they're recovering.
But it's way better. Yeah, no, absolutely.
They're recovering from the issues of the Rust Belt, like that they had for a while, like which is great.
3.5 million people live in the metropolitan Detroit area.
Like again. And here's the thing. I know for a fact that like houses like that in an urban sprawl get bought up by urban development or public housing or even nonprofits to house homeless people immediately. Like houses they either get bulldozed and the lot gets sold like immediately, or somebody buys it to fix it. Even in like poor or disenfranchised or like scary neighborhoods, it just happens.
And they go all the way down the path of like nobody lives here because Phoenix is able to visit her burnt out ash of a house 8 years later.
Still!
8 years later, the house is still just sitting there, framed, ashy and burned. Like she can walk in and
I guess dude's still chilling there. Like he got out of jail and went there. Like, oh shit, it's still burned down.
It's
oh,
still
my
here.
meth
It's still burned.
That's the thing. Like a slumlord would have taken that and like turned it into like a
something
hotel immediately.
Yeah, like, 8 years. Come on,
that's hot commodity. It was on fire, literally.
Also, why does the blind man just attract house fires to his presence? Why is that just a through line with him?
It's a side effect of his superpowers.
You can't see a fire.
He can't see, and he's fire prone. There's nothing he can do about that.
I see.
That's why he named his kid
another
Phoenix.
But guys, what a
swerve,
device. Right? We thought they were all stealing organs, but the reality is they had Molotov cocktails in there. But also they were stealing organs.
I fell for it.
Also,
only the one guy was stealing organs. They just like hired him. It's different. It's a contractor thing.
Oddly, not went into far enough. Like they talk all about it in the very beginning, and then like he just shows up and he's like, "I'm here to do the heart part," and you kind of have a moment of like, "Is that the guy that they're talking about before, the serial killer?" And they just glaze right over it.
When they show the guy, I'm like, I feel like
is that the true villain of the movie?
I knew it immediately. I was like, that's the organ guy.
Yep.
I still didn't make the connection, and then like wheelchair lady comes out, and I was just like, still not making the connection.
They almost make him like. They almost make him sympathetic too. He's like
the heart guy. Yeah.
Why is she still alive? You should have killed her before it happened. I don't want to kill her. Also, I need better tools if you're gonna make me do this. Also, I'm leaving. Like, he does not want to be there in the slightest at all.
He's like, I could be killing people right now. This is stupid.
And also, like, okay, if they're there to like harvest her parts, his whole team knows that, right? Why was she ever put in death level danger?
Yeah.
He was.
He wasn't supposed to be.
Like that's it. That would have been the whole gambit is over.
If she was that guy didn't get the memo. He was like, "Yeah, get the kid. We'll just find it."
It seemed like every lackey understood what the goal here was.
So
no, it was very vague. They just said we're gonna go for a drive.
So arguably, and I'm not agreeing with this. I'm gonna give this movie. I'm gonna give this movie the benefit of the doubt that it could have been a bluff. Like
that he's gonna yank it out. Yeah, he was very much in control of that for sure.
He was checking on it, but like, and when he didn't expect Stephen Lang to show the fuck back up, and so he was like, "Oh shit," or I was just gonna shoot him and then like do the thing.
Because like, the water did get turned on like accidentally while they were fighting as well.
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, for sure.
I said several opportunities where they could have just killed Stephen Lang, like no problem.
Yeah. I don't know why they didn't. Yeah. That's like the thing, right?
Well, because he's the protagonist. You can't just kill the protagonist.
He has like odd plot armor for being like the hero villain.
Yeah. He also just has all those moments of like building up sympathy for him, where it's like, he finds his dog and he's very sad, and then from there, his house burns down and he's very sad because the whole time they're kind of looking at you like, see, look, this is the guy you hate from the first movie
twice.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the whole time, he doesn't shoot the dog because he likes dogs, and then he goes back and saves the dog. They're doing all of that to build him up as it's like, oh, he's a good guy now. Like, I think what they were trying to say, like what they were trying to show with that, show not tell, is he's reformed and he is like no longer just doing bad things. It's been 8 years, right? I thought they were going to do something like a scene with him going to confession or seeing a therapist where he was going to be talking about the things that he's done and trying to work through it. Like, I thought there was going to be something to just reflect the fact that he's a monster and we're trying to humanize that character now. And they just don't.
He legitimately can't do either one of those things because it's only been 8 years, so all of those crimes are not under a murder.
You think the movie cares about that? You could easily have a scene with him going to a priest, and the priest is just like, well, I can't say anything. And people go, yeah, that sounds right.
The priest does for murder.
Nah, I mean, priests are really good about keeping quiet about stuff.
Come on, in movies, I mean, they're in on it.
Yeah. The one guy actively condoned Matt Murdock, vigilante, and because he was blind. He's like, yeah, what am I going to do? Call the cops? The blind guy's killing all these people? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of things the movie does not worry about. The movie's not sitting there like, oh, how do we justify this? Like, it's just like...
I guess, man. I don't know. I guess I'm giving this movie too much credit. You're right.
What about this movie would make you get to that conclusion of like, this is art? Like, I don't know.
I think that part of the issue with this movie is that if you watch this movie as a standalone movie, it's less bad. It's less bad by itself. Like, it's more bad as a sequel because the movie doesn't try to like rectify the sins of the first movie. Like, if you only saw the second movie, you probably would have liked it a lot more. Like, I think that they, him being sort of like a pseudo villain in the second movie, like, if you haven't seen the first movie, that's totally fine. Like, a lot of these issues are because of what the first movie.
We know what he did. Yeah.
You know what would have made this movie so fucking good?
Yeah. If it was an actual sequel to the first movie and they went down that clearly defined storyline that they had set up.
No,
for sure.
I was actually interested in.
They retconned that for sure.
Yeah, come on.
Yes.
He gave up at the airport. He's like, never mind.
He walked out of his house to stalk
them. Tickets are how much?
He was going to stalk them cross country blind and walked out of his house and saw a girl in the street and was like, oh, this will do.
Like, I actually wanted to ask about that.
Okay.
Go first. Oh, you have a point here. We'll get to me.
I just want to mention, like, they could have like mentioned like him, like, again, that whole thing, right? They could have made the mother the one dude's sister, right?
Yeah, so, that would have been cool.
It's right, and so like, and the mother was the one dude's sister, and she was still alive. Like, they broke in, saved her, and then like they've been building up for years to try to kill this guy because the last time, like, when the family tried to say, like, again, yada yada yada, right?
Yep.
And they were like meth heads, so like the cops wouldn't believe them, blah blah blah, whatever.
Love that.
And then like, but the entire movie you don't know that, right? And so like, and so they never have, and so they kidnap the child, right? And then it you don't see the villains the entire time. It's just Stephen Lang doing this, right? But like within the last 5 minutes after Stephen Lang's killed like every fucking buddy, right? Phoenix shows up and she's got the fucking machete and he's all beat the fuck up, and then it flashes back for like 45 seconds and gives you all like this positive information. She meets her uncle, she meets her mom's still dying but she wants to spend the last years with her daughter, and then Phoenix fucking kills the shit out of Stephen Lang. That would have been like such a like a great like cathartic ending to the movie, like. And it was so close to being that, the fact that, like, and it would have made up for all the stupid shit, right? Like, I would have been able to deal with, like, Stephen Lang is good to the dogs, like, whatever. Like, you could have kept all that dumb shit, and I would have been like, that kind of works, right? Have other movies done that before? Sure, but, like, it would have been a much more interesting thought. Like, it would have been the same sort of, like, flip. Yeah. Right, where like, how did we trick you into falling for liking this guy again?
Yep.
Type thing, right? Like,
ugh.
I don't think that would have suddenly made it a better movie, though.
I think it would have made it a
everything still would have happened.
I think it would have made it just
know.
as good as the first one.
Yep, I agree. I think it would have been just as good as the first one then. Alan, what was your question?
I forgot. But on top of the topic there with the blind man at the very end, when I heard what we find out to be Raylan getting stabbed in the back, and I was like, they actually did something interesting.
Yeah.
That was basically the thought that came into my head. They actually fucking killed him in an interesting way. Like, no, this man doesn't get to see his daughter. She doesn't get a goodbye. He's dead. And
now there's a new blind man.
That would have been so much more interesting.
Imagine if there was imagine if he did kill him, and then Don't Breathe 3 was with Raylan instead. Like that could have been a cool passing of the torch of a new blind man. Like,
for sure.
Yeah.
Having to get used to it.
I'm gonna make you like me.
And he gets a lot of those gross kills. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But and then Hernandez's friends show up and are like, "Hey, somebody killed our friend. What's that about?" And it's just a cycle of like a group of dudes going after one blind guy and getting murdered. Like
this movie simultaneously shies away, but then also shows gore in a very inconsistent manner.
For sure.
Because you get one good glimpse of the brother,
the shovel guy,
getting his face destroyed,
kills,
and you see it.
Yeah.
But then the other brother, instead of just showing his skull getting cracked, it just turns away. Like this is an R-rated movie. Like, fucking show us what you want to show us. If you want,
they did. They're like, that's one hell of a throw. That's a blind guy threw that. Like that's what they're trying to show you.
They
it's
show
like
the eye gouge, which is way more visceral than what.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, because you see the eye fluid like leak out of him too.
Yeah.
The kills in this movie made me want possessor levels of gore, and it didn't give me possessor levels of gore, and it would have been so much more visceral. And even if this movie decided instead of, let's say it doesn't do any of the changes we have suggested so far, and it's still the same movie, but it has phenomenal gore.
Yep.
We're having a totally different discussion in this podcast. I'm telling you right now, my score would have been higher. Oh, I would have been.
I think you would have grabbed more fans of the genre
for sure. Like if they showed every kill, and if the 3 kills in like the pool of water, right when he just shoots those
the dead eye scene.
If instead of shooting those,
get
3
it because he's blind. Because
that was stupid. If that was a more traditional slasher scenario, I think that if we had those 3 and you saw every other kill, I would have liked this movie a lot more. Probably a full point more, which would have.
Yes.
Spoilers bumped it up to average for me.
You could almost have the blind man be just a slasher villain if you see more of the gore or better.
They clearly set him up that way in the first movie. He is that in the first movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's not here, and he should be.
He is. It's just like almost PG-13 level. Bobby.
For sure. It did feel like a PG-13 movie.
Yeah.
And as we discussed last week, Bobby.
Oh, PG-13 horror is bad. It's all
there
bad.
You go.
Okay.
I will say this, though. There's 2 things I want to mention on this tangent, though. You know what this movie really could have used? Just based off of whatever you guys are saying, all this, like, with the extra gore. It could have really used a Halloween 2018 style long shot of him fucking murdering people.
Yeah, especially like in the apartment complex at the end.
That's like my favorite part about that movie.
They show all those like just guys, like they could just be fodder. They could just be dead bodies, and they don't do anything.
For sure. That's what I assumed was going to happen. I'm like, oh, that's all of them. There's just 5. Okay, we already did that.
Seal, right? So like just disaffectantly, just like ending people, like in like a really scary, methodical way, where it's like, Jesus Christ.
They actually have a scene like that in the Suicide Squad. Did you guys watch that yet?
I haven't seen it yet.
They have a long shot like that where it's Idris Elba and John Cena's characters like totally killing guys, and like it's guns and superhero stuff, but like it's the same vibe, and it's very, very cool. It's like like these scenes are cool if you want to show somebody being over the top.
It's one of the coolest scenes in Halloween 2018 for sure.
Absolutely,
I think it would have been.
It was straight up like my favorite.
Yeah.
It definitely would have been better, because I thought that was what this movie was going to try to do, was to add kind of a sense of scale to him as a scary slasher guy.
That's what
the first one, because like there was like 3 people in the first movie. There were 3 of them, and he killed 2. That's it. So, like, at that point, having this have, like, a whole hotel full of just expendable dudes, that, to me, I thought that was what that scene, like, that whole section was going to be, was him killing his way up to the top, because that's another genre of movies of just, like, here's a tower, there's bad guys at every floor, except the bad guy is the guy going up the floor, right? And I think that could have also been really cool, just to see, hey, this guy's a literal monster. Like, yeah, there were those guys back at the house he killed, but now he's just going for it. And then you still have that level of... Yeah, exactly. You still have that level of like, well, he's doing this to save her, so like he's actually the good guy.
I have raped. Anyway,
really awkward when it just runs into all the people in the meth lab in their underwear. They're still just getting slaughtered, and he's just like, yeah, I don't care about that.
For sure.
So the other thing I wanted to mention, because Corbin brought it to my attention really early on, and I could not lose it, is the color coding. In this
it's terrible. Yeah,
is literal dog shit. Like it makes like true like practical effect scenes look like CGI. Like it's just so it looks like the entire movie is made on a fucking green screen. It's so goddamn bad.
I think I pointed it out when
did that.
Phoenix was visiting her Ash home. I turned about it just like the color grading is terrible. Like she looks like she's made from stone. Like
I know I said it to you first because it was when they were driving. I'm like
yep.
Is
you asked if it was all green. If this was green screen,
Is this green screen or is this just the color? And you're like,
when she like fell in the street, I'm like, why did they need to CGI that?
Apparently they did. I think there's very little CGI.
I sincerely feel like 99% of this movie was on like, besides like the outdoor scenes in front of the house, were on a fucking soundstage.
Yeah, for sure.
Besides, like, because it is just like, what the fuck is even happening? Like,
hey man, it's a horror sequel. We're trying to make money here. We can be spending money to do that.
No, they have a $10 million budget.
Yeah, that went to Stephen Lang.
$8 million to Stephen Lang.
At least half of that had to have gone to
I was gonna say he definitely is. He's the reason people go to see this movie. They're like, oh man, he was really scary the first one. Let's watch it again.
It's already made. No,
it made at least
that's Don't Breathe 1. Actually.
The first movie had a $9. The first movie had a $9 million budget, and it made 158 back, which is like the slasher money that you want. Like that was
for sure
huge success story.
That's massive return. Friday the 13th level returns.
It absolutely was.
I'm sorry. They had an extra $5 million to play with in this movie.
Okay.
And they did not use it properly. Because
that's what they had to throw at Stephen Lang to make him do it again.
The worldwide box office so far is 17, so they've made their money back. Mm-hmm. They've gone even plus a couple. They made a profit off of it, which means there will be a Don't Breathe.
That's in a post-COVID world.
And this movie is probably going to end up doing really well because even bad horror movies, since like people have started going back to the theater, have done pretty well. So,
considering we've watched exclusively bad horror movies, that's
even the ones that didn't.
I've also watched exclusively bad horror movies.
In the theater.
I just really hope
1 out of 1
next week. Next week,
exactly.
Candyman, right?
Next week is Candyman. Yeah.
I just really hope we convene and we all go, guys. We got him. We got a good one. Finally, we can gush a little bit.
I mean, I have high hopes and high expectations for Candyman. Right?
Me too.
The director, she seems really good. You know, it's a Jordan Peele produced movie. Right? Everything he's touched is gold so far. So
for sure.
You know, I like the original source material, right? Like high hopes, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I have another
we're talking about Don't Breathe 2 here.
Yes, Alan.
The whole reason that they want to get their daughter back.
Yes.
Okay? The whole reason is for a heart transplant.
Yeah.
Right.
And the whole reason they even need her mother is because she's the meth cook.
Yeah.
You're telling me this bitch makes meth so good that you can't find literally anybody else.
Yes.
So instead of finding another meth cook, you're going to murder a child with an organ harvesting doctor.
Yes. And a blind super soldier.
Yes. And a blind super soldier's involved.
Yeah.
And that makes more sense than just finding the next and
murdering a random woman.
Alan, have you seen Breaking Bad?
Yes.
So you know then that meth is super hard to make well.
So difficult.
And
she clearly didn't. She burned the house down.
Here's the thing, right? Speed freaks,
that's true.
Dudes who are like super hardcore addicted to meth, in the same way, that people who are super addicted to any sort of opioid or any sort of addictive substances are really, really give a fucking shit about the good quality stuff and not just enough to get a fix off of.
Oh, so she's like the enterprising, like she keeps pushing the genre, you know, like she's just really in that kitchen. So, she is cooking. She is trying to be the Gordon Ramsay, right? And then it blew up in her face, literally, and now she's like, now I need to do harder. I'll start talking like Stephen Lang.
Insides are burned.
Yeah, again, the great dialogue. They burned out my insides, daughter.
Yeah, people legitimately do not and I don't either, right? I only have a small understanding, but more than fucking apparently the people who wrote this movie on how drugs happen, because just get another fucking cook, dude. Just find some 16-year-old who wants to make a quick buck, right? I'm not saying that's a good thing, right? Obviously,
Bobby endorsing meth creation in all the United States of America.
I am neither endorsing nor but I mean, it's and it's probably a difficult process, but people know how to do it. There's a lot of people who make meth. It's the same thing with there's with weed in the past 10 years. There used to be people who just grew plants in their closet and that's how they made their bills, right? Was just selling the weed out of the 5 plants that they were making in their closet. Some people still do that, right? It's legal in Illinois right now where we record this podcast.
Good call.
For Indiana, where Alan doesn't exist.
And we don't have illegal fun things because
you can't do that because you're on the other side of the political spectrum. Sorry about that.
But it's I agree with you. I get why Raylan wants to, right? Because I think his whole process is he loves his girlfriend or wife, right? So he wants to save it, right? But at the same time, it is blatantly unconvincing that they also wouldn't love their daughter.
Yeah, at that point, if she was the cook, then maybe it makes sense. But he's clearly in love with her also. At least they try to present it that way. Right. So
and when they lost
why doesn't that extend to the daughter?
She was only 3. You didn't love your 3-year-old baby. I
got just about 3-year-old niece. I love the hell out of her.
Yeah, come on.
You get attached quick to these things.
She was lost too young, and they were gone for too long. And they clearly have a high level emotional range for them to just be totally fine with cutting her open.
Here's the thing. Yeah. I love Corbin's daughter, and I'm not even blood related to her, but I take a bullet. I take a bullet for your baby, because because we're very good friends, and I like your baby a lot. She's very nice.
Also, that's how evolution works. Your brain's kids, great.
Yeah. Again, it's very easy for me to understand loving a child. I would not. So the whole premise of why these people are villains does not make sense to anybody. I feel it's just because they're evil, they would kill their daughter because of this.
And I think that's part of why their dialogue is so bad, because they had to be cartoonishly bad for it to make any level of sense at all.
Right.
They had to
maybe that was the reveal that they were going for?
Beyond reality.
It's goosebumps tier, my guy. It's goosebumps tier.
Absolutely it is.
I think
this is a movie where the writing was put
Don't
into
go
a
in
machine,
the basement.
And the machine was humans will find this to feel things.
Yeah. The blind man is blind and therefore deadly. Yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
That's absolutely. It's but the dogs like the blind man, for they too cannot see, but they can. Stuff like that. It's just. I think it, like you said, it's cartoonishly.
The dogs see black and white.
Oh, see, they're basically, and that's black and white. Back to the movie. Look at that, black and white. I do think, like Corbin said, though,
because you saved him and told him to stay.
That's how dogs work. Yeah, all you have to do is save them from a fire. They get it immediately. That dog is actually capable of higher level thought than them as the antagonist. He's like, wait a minute. They brought Molotov cocktails. They burned the house down and left me here? This is bullshit. I'm changing sides.
And frankly, the protagonist as well, because he at least goes, oh man, I live here. Let me get some food.
You get some what?
He goes try to get his food.
Oh no, I just didn't hear it because it cut out. But no, I think like Corbin said, like if they were just completely tweaked out and just very clearly in the like bad stages of addiction, and then they had that thought process, it would definitely make more sense. Where it's like, wow, they've gone so far that's the level they're at. But they're all just like perfectly capable of like regular interaction, and then at the end they're like, oh, by the way, kind of awkward. We're gonna cut you off and take your arm. Like it kind of it's cartoonish.
They don't actually go down the path at all of these people being meth heads. We've said that several times, but they really don't. They just go down the path of these people are meth dealers. They give you no indication that these people are taking their own product, that these people are high or is he in a bad way. Like, they just cook and deal, and that's how they're
professionals. By. Except for the whole house exploding thing.
Right. Yeah. So she made one mistake. You know?
Which to be fair, like, you know, meth's a dangerous drug to.
Yeah, create. But statistically, most meth labs don't blow up.
Yeah, actually, you're absolutely right. Yeah, no.
Statistically, that's
so she's kind of not good at it. Like I will say, it's hard to cook for sure, but like if it blows up, you're just bad at it.
I lived in Terre Haute for years, meth capital USA. No meth lab explosions. The entire
got some solid meth
I lived there.
Yeah.
Got some solid meth down there. The cooks know what they're doing.
I work in a field where sometimes I talk to meth dealers and meth cooks. Here's the thing, right?
Do they blow up?
Yeah. No blow-ups.
Then they're pretty good at it.
Yeah, so like I feel like you have to make a pretty big issue to blow up a meth lab.
Exactly. So why are we keeping this lady alive? She's so not worth it. Instead, let's raise the child as the prodigy meth maker. Like that would have been a more coherent plot.
Here's the other. Did she go to jail too?
That would have been so much more interesting.
Right. We will teach you the ways of your mother. You were passed down.
Like we're gonna teach you how to cook and like.
It's in the blood.
I think that's a Naruto subplot at that point. It's a Kekkei Genkai to make really good meth.
Did she not go to jail with her husband?
Okay, thank you for saying
she went to the hospital because she was dying, and they were like, "Is this because that meth lab explosion?" She said, "No."
Because he went to the jail because
they stashed her away.
Was she cooking the whole time, or did they have another cook? If they were getting
because she was coughing. She was coughing, and the cops were like, "Come on, lady, jeez," and they just let her go.
Did she sell out her husband to not go to jail?
Ooh.
Yeah. And was cooking the whole time. Yes.
Terrible.
And her heart just now. Hold on. So you're telling me it's convenient that her heart is just now starting to fail when her husband gets out of jail, so he can then go re-abduct, I guess.
I think
the heart wants what the heart wants.
I think that
she
would have lasted a couple more, a little while longer. I think they were just impatient to get it over with, so they didn't have to wait.
She had a few good matches left.
Yeah,
for sure.
They realized they had an option.
Yeah.
That's a very strange option to me too. It's just like we have a very risky heart transplant where you could both kill a kid and also kill your cook. And the guy's like, "Yeah, fuck, it's better than her just dying, right?" And the doctor guy's is kind of like,
2 for 1.
The whole idea of that doctor
for how much you're paying me.
I don't want to kill a kid, but I've no problem harvesting and trafficking organs. Get fucked.
That's different.
Are you kidding
Those are adult
me?
Organs.
Why do they make the serial killer somewhat sympathetic?
Exactly.
That's the whole movie. Is killers are sympathetic and drug dealers.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So he definitely
in the pre-show, I said to Bobby,
this movie is a big Blue Lives Matter movie.
I said to Bobby, I find it funny that the past 2 weeks in a row, we've watched movies with odd messages. Lights Out was like, hey, if you've got mental problems, kill yourself. Okay, strange,
Still mad
weird,
about that movie.
Not a very good motive. In this one, hey, you can murder, rape, be an awful garbage person, and you're still redeemable by your child you have abused for 8 years.
As long as those people you killed jaywalked, then that's fine. They have crimed, and therefore they will die.
Absolutely.
But like, you know, if they didn't do anything, then they get killed, then you're the bad guy. So you got to be careful not to beat anybody to death with a hammer unless they have actively committed crime.
This movie really wanted to make out with Ronald Reagan, but didn't think about the fact that Ronald Reagan just really hated black people. So like they made all the villains white.
No, there was the one guy. There was the one guy.
One
of the men
who didn't say a single fucking word this entire movie.
Nah, he didn't need to. Yeah, because
they're like, how can we make Ronald Reagan's war on drugs look good again?
That guy was smarter though, because the whole time they're like, yeah, we got the blind guy. He's still killing us. The guy's like, I'm just not going to say nothing. That was probably a good move. His bad move was walking in the kiddie pool and not shooting the guy from afar. It's like, hey, is this that blind super soldier? And he's like laying here, possibly dead, but our guy is also dead? Maybe we just shoot the hell out of him from here.
Yeah.
Just in case. In case.
We all thought the same thing. Just shoot the guy just to be safe. But
like, what a bold strategy.
Here's the thing, right? We've talked about this movie enough. How about we get to the ratings? I'm stealing
Okay.
Corbin's thunder here. We rate this.
I was just waiting
1 out
for
of
the
5.
moment.
Half points.
Half
No.
points. 0 to 5.
0 to 5. You're right.
Zero's an
0 to
option.
5.
Interesting.
Yeah, zero's an option. 0 to 5. Half points are available. Quarter points are not. So 5.5 is cool. No, 4.5 is cool. 3.25 is not.
Imagine rating a movie 5.
Very specific.
Yeah.
Is that an option? Can you do that?
Yeah, The Exorcist 3 deserved it.
Alan, why don't you start us off?
I hate you.
How is this hard?
I am torn. Well, no, it's because I'm torn between giving this the same rating as Resident Evil, Infinite Darkness, and a half point higher. I'm kind of between a 0.5 and a 1. That's kind of where I'm sitting. This is the second week in a row where I go, I really fucked up with Resident Evil, because I'm going to give this a 1. I think that largely this movie did nothing. I came out of this movie I just kept going, why did I have to spend money to watch a movie that gave me a bad message, bad acting, middle of the road gore because it couldn't commit to either being a PG-13 horror movie or an R-rated horror movie, but because of certain scenes it got an R rating, whatever. It couldn't commit to one of those. There are so many plot holes it would give people agoraphobia. Like, it's obscene. It's ridiculous. There's so many different points where this plot breaks down into nonsense. The whole scheme, my note I wrote down, so I wrote notes in the dark, very difficult. I wrote, this whole scheme is so fucking preposterous. Find a new meth cook. Fuck. Like, I couldn't handle that whole sequence.
But Alan, I love that meth cook.
And I find it so frustrating because in the 4-minute synopsis that I watched of Don't Breathe 1, I am more interested to watch that movie, and it set me up to think, okay, this is a franchise that can take a relatively simple idea and give you some sort of a twist on that. I was kind of expecting, this is maybe not the best example, I like M. Night Shyamalan movies. I'll admit it, I don't care. I was expecting like an M. Night kind of twist on what's going to happen. Something is going to surprise me or something come out of nowhere that'll make me go, oh, this is now an interesting movie. And this movie did so little to interest me that I wish I hadn't seen it.
You know, it's actually pronounced Manite.
Give me the old dick.
You're going second for that.
Dick.
So I would say, again, before you mentioned popcorn horror, and I'm like, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Because it was definitely not a horror movie. At no point did I think to myself, wow, this is scary. And even in the first one, it did have, like, it was clearly going for that, whereas it was still pretty thrillery, I would say, honestly. So for this one, I would say, if I would give the original Don't Breathe a 3, I would give this one a 2, especially with the 0, where it's like, when I watched it, like, I didn't have, like, I was watching it, it was kind of goofy, I was having a good time, right? Like, I was not looking for some, like, piece of art in the genre. I was not looking, like, and obviously I didn't even know the genre, so obviously I couldn't be. But I was just looking for, like, a movie that was, my big question was, what are they going to do about the fact that this guy's a rapist monster? Like, how are we going to do, and they just didn't. They just chose not to.
No, you forget. I've killed.
He said that it happened.
I've killed.
Yeah, as we know.
Raped.
Saying that you did a bad thing is actually enough to exonerate you altogether. That's why confession exists, because you go and you say, hey, I did some bad shit, and the guy goes, don't even worry about it, bro, you're good. So that's basically what this movie is.
Hey, listen, pedophile, can you tell God that I did bad and I'm okay now?
Yeah, and then the pedophile goes, I'll see you at the next church, and he does one of those. But
confirmed Catholic, Bobby.
Same, actually. I'm on the list. But as far as it goes, I would definitely say I think a 2. I went in expecting nothing. I got nothing, and so I left like, that was about what I wanted it to be. Obviously, it could have been scary. It could have been a lot of things, and instead it was just a very PG-13 thriller movie.
Before we go to either Corbin and Bobby, I have to ask you a question, Bobby.
Yes.
Did you just do your best, like, Sasquatch impression there and just pause for us on your way back to your desk?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
that's for the screen cap.
In there.
That's for the screen cap, yeah.
For audio listeners, I poured myself a second drink.
Yeah, for audio.
So
I had to walk away from my desk to pour myself a second drink. Yeah.
You guys might have heard me squeeze my Mountain Dew Rise can. We're not sponsored by Mountain Dew Rise, but if we could get that, I would love some residuals.
It would be nice.
Because, like I said, it's my first appearance on the show. I've never been on the show before,
Mountain
so I'd
Dew,
like to start off with
sponsor us. Hey, Danhausen, if you ever want to be on the podcast, you're much more famous than we are, but you're also my favorite wrestler. So I'll rep your merch every single day. Anyway, I'll go.
Yeah.
Because I was called out.
Yeah.
So I would say going off of last week's episode, I think it's fitting because I had a whole rant about how twos is the worst place for a movie to be in. And I've thought about it since. And I feel like twos is like it is the worst out of the places that a movie could be in for me, but I could still find some fun and utility in this movie. This movie was unintentionally hilarious in a lot of ways. It was so like in the same way that I think Lights Out, the more I think about it, I was like, I had some fun with this movie just laughing at it, right? This movie's going to get a 2 for me for the same reason, right? It almost got a 1.5 because it is not as technically proficient as other twos I have given, because there's just some weird, the color grading's weird. The music, I can't think about the music at all. If there was any, it's utterly forgettable.
I didn't even notice music in this movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, big downside to a horror film. It's like, I didn't even know if there was music at all. It's like that's
an issue.
Yeah.
I know enough about horror to know music's important.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very.
Like, and typically I'm not one to notice music, despite music being a big part of who I am as a person. But like, this is like it I can't think of it even a little bit, right? So like that's an issue, right? Because like when I notice music, it's usually I notice it because it's good. There just really isn't much here. It's like a good popcorn thing. Like you'll go through it, you'll be like, if you're somebody who is not, again, a cynical asshole like I am, right, you'll probably be like, oh, that was kind of worth $8, right? Like to go and have a night out and you get your popcorn.
But was it worth $11?
Well, then I changed my mind.
And some change, yeah. And the cost of the pretzel bites.
Yeah.
Which is mostly just a torn up mouth afterwards.
It's a tough movie for us.
Yeah. Hey, well, here's also the thing is, I also had dinner, so I didn't even get to enjoy my popcorn because I was very full from dinner. So that did not add to my excitement. It's fine. It's in the same way that Lights Out is just fine. I'm gonna mostly rag on movies like that because, like, I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me anymore. Like, I need something a little bit more, or I need something that's like really bad and stupid fun, or I need something that like
stands out,
that is elevated, right? And this movie tries to be both, and it fails at both. So it's a 2.
Okay.
The worst place in the Bobby scoring to be.
Corbin, why don't you tell us your rating on this?
Yeah, so I'm going to echo a little bit of what Bobby said. Right? Yeah. This movie for me had a lot in common with Lights Out, right? It was just a typical, in most ways, horror movie, popcorn horror, which is the majority of horror that hits theaters. Most of it is not that good, right? There was a period of time at the height of Movie Pass, right, where I was seeing every horror movie that came out, and most of them are bad. They just are. But there's usually you're finding like good within the bad, like I just love horror movies. 90% of the time there's going to be a sequence or something cool in there that I'm like, oh, okay, like that was worth it for me. That's all I needed, and for me, for this movie, it probably was the very beginning of the home invasion with Phoenix. That was a cool sequence. It was really well done. I liked it. I liked that it was her, it kind of mixed it up a little bit. I liked that scene. Echoing Lights Out and Bobby, I'm going to give this a 1.5. And it's because, a big issue for me with this movie is that I didn't hate the first movie, but I didn't love it. For me, the first movie is almost like a perfect popcorn horror, which is that like it does some cool things. It isn't like amazing, but it's a cool movie. It's a little bit different, and it's actually technically well done, right? And when the first trailer for this movie came out, I remember I had the same thoughts that everybody else did, right? And the cast and crew tried to assuage those thoughts. When they did interviews, it's like, but is it going to be really? And I tried to go in with very, very low expectations, and I think my number one issue with this movie is that it met those low expectations. I wasn't expecting them to do anything interesting with the blind man as a character. I didn't get it. I wasn't expecting them to do anything interesting with the home invaders, who I was 90% sure were just going to be her family. That's exactly what it was, right? Like, it...
Dude, we guessed it before the movie started.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
And
we knew how that was going to go. Even the dog part, we said from the beginning, like that dog's going to be on his side by the end of this.
I think that, I mentioned it earlier, I would have given this movie a full point higher if they would just went in on the slasher angle and he was brutal and you saw all the kills on screen and they just went for it, right? It's blunt instruments the whole time. Like, that is hardcore. And I think that if we had seen more of that, it probably would have been a 2 or a 2.5 for me, because honestly, a slasher with good kills in it, with a nonsensical story, I'm totally fine with that, right? Like, I love slashers. That's all I care about, really. So, because they didn't, and because the rest of it wasn't very good, 1.5. I will probably never watch it again.
The fact that the Kick-Ass clone Super, starring Rainn Wilson from The Office, has better blunt instrument gore in it than this.
Yep,
says a lot.
Which also an indie movie, like super low budget, like.
Oh, and that movie fucking kicks ass.
Very good movie.
Like that movie's like is bad. I love that movie a lot.
And you know what else? The trailer for this movie had every single kill in it. Every single one.
Exactly.
I hate that.
Well, that's what happens when you have 6 people in the movie. Like,
I think it misses one.
Okay, maybe one.
I think it misses the brother kill. I don't remember that in the trailer.
With the shovel or with the
only truly brutal kill of the whole movie. The shovel kill. The hammer kill is in the trailer for sure. They show literally the whole thing.
The hammer throw, yeah. They show the part with him popping up with a gun too, yeah. All of that stuff is just in the trailer.
Yep.
So hey, you can watch the trailer. You can even hold your breath through it, and you can like fulfill the mission of the movie.
See,
better not. Don't breathe.
Yeah, he says breathe in the movie. It was really funny. Like, he's like, she's freaking out. He's like, breathe. I'm like, hey, you're not supposed to do that.
That's the opposite of what this says.
Yeah.
Remember when he says that the cool line from the first movie at the end for no fucking reason?
Yeah, they used that as a trailer line for 2 movies in a row, and then he finally actually says it.
What was the trailer line?
Now you'll see what
I see. Oh, yeah, and it's nothing because he's blind. Yeah, all right. Nah, I'm glad I forgot that.
They use that in the trailers for the first and second movie as a VO when he turns the light off, and it's just not in the movie during those parts either time. So, Yeah.
I love that. The guys, there's like, we just got to get back around and turn the light back on.
But he does say it when he gouges the eyes.
Yep.
Which at that point is like CSI level, like punnery,
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Let's move on, guys. We ended up rating this pretty low, all over the board. But is it essential? Spoiler free.
Not even a little bit.
Spoiler free. Taylor's just jumping right into it. Taylor gave it a 2, right? So Taylor gave it a 2, Bobby gave it a 2, Alan gave it a 1. I gave it a
4.5 out of 5.
Bobby gives everything a 4 out of 5.
The pinnacle of the genre.
Alan gave it a 1. I gave it a 1.5. Is it essential? Taylor's going first because he already said it. Taylor.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with no. I feel like, again, the first one you could construe as a horror movie. This one is kind of like a just bad Die Hard, I guess, is kind of a good way to go about it. And so at the end of it, I think that this is nowhere resembling a horror movie, let alone something essential for the genre.
Short, succinct, persuasive. I love it.
I agree with that. I'm going to go next. It's a no for me. And I'm actually going to say this isn't a bad Die Hard. This is a bad John Wick. And it's definitely not scary at all. They had every chance to make it scary, and they didn't. It's just simply not essential.
Somebody's got to go. Yeah.
I have really nothing to add. I was really waiting for it to be scary because, like, it has all the elements to be scary.
Yeah.
It takes place at night.
Number one, gotta be dark.
That's like 70% of the game.
Yeah. I gotta be able to see what he sees.
It's dark. They die.
Wild gore.
Yeah, they beat a guy
a flash
to death
of
with,
glow. Yeah,
they beat a guy to death with an instrument that's not used for killing. Like, they have all of the elements, and all of them are just like again. If you watch horror and you're listening to this podcast, so I assume you do, you're gonna get more laughs out of this than you do spooks. So it's not.
I don't watch horror, and I also got laughs out of it. So
yeah, but you were also sitting next to me, so and I was laughing a lot through this movie.
We were definitely.
It felt much more appropriate to laugh in this movie than it did in the Forever Purge because reasons.
Yeah.
Anyway. It's non-essential. It's just not even a little bit essential.
Mm-hmm.
You'll forget about it leaving this movie.
I already did.
We left out, that I forgot, and I'm remembering now. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a bit of this movie.
Yeah, it's no. I mean, there's not a whole lot that really needs to be added here. I wish I would have gotten something remotely interesting, and all I got was just a big pile of blah.
I will say
it's just not.
Stephen Lang is great.
Yeah, he's great. No, agreed.
Yeah.
He's not enough to make it essential.
He should have been Cable.
That's
it. He should have been Cable.
That's fair.
Hey, speaking of Star Trek Enterprise, the long forgotten Star Trek series, what are your handles? What have you been up to?
Yeah. So Taylor, because this is your first time on the show, you're gonna go. Right. So where can we find you?
Okay.
Off air. No, people aren't watching. They're not listening. Where can people find you? And have you been doing anything interesting lately?
Generally, you can't. I haven't really been doing anything interesting at all. I don't really have any handles that are worth sharing, and I've been playing a lot of Warhammer. Really getting into Warhammer, building stuff, painting stuff. That's been pretty much all I've been doing. So
I love that. Okay.
You can find me at a seal punter just about anywhere. I've been more active on Twitter, and I haven't really been doing a whole lot. Still reading The Stand.
We're boring. We
Big
suck.
long book. I'm through a good chunk of Wizard and Glass, and I am going to talk to Bobby about that after we finish recording, because I have thoughts that I think are interesting.
Hell yeah, brother. I'm super excited.
Such a good book.
Let's wrap this up. You can find me at twitch.tv/TheRedWeenie. All my relevant socials are there. I don't post much on my Twitter, but I've been trying to get back into it. I post sporadically on my Instagram. Again, I've mentioned this before. It is first himbo pics, then pictures of my dog, then me and my fiance, producer Mallory, who runs the Essential Scares Instagram. Doing fun stuff together, and then random stuff forth. It's just the way it goes. What I've been doing lately is actually I've been building some Warhammer miniatures. For those of you who watch the video, you can see
completely unrelated
that I have built something.
Warhammer is dark fantasy. That's horror adjacent.
Yeah.
Is it? Oh, where's that episode?
It's coming.
I'll come back on. Let's do it. I'll see you then.
As well as watching the wrestling that I typically watch and all my other fun hobbies that I do. Actually, I'm very excited for the Cenobite, who is Pinhead, who has been announced for Dead by Daylight. I might actually start playing that game again. I briefly had a brief foray into it. I might actually start streaming it for either the podcast or for myself, because
maybe both.
As we all know, I'm a big fan of Hellraiser. So
that's true.
It's also a really good streaming game. Very easy. Even somebody like me can do it.
Yeah, probably, sure.
I've done it like twice.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Hold on. You had a Twitch and you didn't plug it? What are you doing?
Well, I don't actually do anything with it. It's just like, hey guys, tune in. Maybe I'll do something in the next 2 months. Could happen. That's not really a helpful plug, I feel like.
Still a plug?
So you can find
every single week, and I barely use it.
You can find Taylor at twitch.tv/Toterfoot, I think.
I should probably deal with that.
Yeah.
No, Taylor Feet is what it is, actually. I should probably change it to my gamer tag.
It's Taylor like somebody that
Tailor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then feet, like with the feet. Yeah, I should probably just change it to my gamer tag, which is equally impronounceable, but...
Yeah, there's just a lot of things that we might want to look at in the future.
There's a reason I didn't plug this.
You can find me anywhere at Corbangarang. I'm very active on Twitter. Come say hi. I'm not really active anywhere else, but you're welcome to follow me. One day I will probably stream. I talked about streaming Back 4 Blood. I ended up not doing it because Back 4 Blood simply wasn't very good, and I didn't want to stream it. I played it 1.5 times, and that was more than enough for me. I mentioned it last week. I am doing the 100 horror movies in 92 days challenge. Recently, I have watched Candicia, which is on Shudder. It's super, super cool. Very different. It's a French horror movie. I highly recommend it. It's like a gory ghost kind of movie. It's cool.
Sacre-boo.
And then I mentioned it earlier. I watched The Suicide Squad lately, which was super cool. Not a horror movie, but well worth a watch if you have HBO Max. And then I have been looking for a new TV show to watch, and I put it out to Twitter to help me finish a show that's been on my backlog. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer won, and so I will be watching 1 episode a day of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and tweeting about it. I started today. I watched the movie just as like a primer. I know it's not canon to the show, really. I love the movie. I just wanted to watch it again. And then starting tomorrow, I'll be watching the show. The X-Files was winning for a long time, and then like suddenly Buffy like just took off. So I thought I was going to be watching
Buffy's a good time.
Yeah.
Big fan of Giles.
Fellow I want to believers, we were robbed. It's the better show.
So I guess 8 months from now or whatever, however long it takes me to watch through Buffy,
it's a long show.
I'll run another poll, and maybe the X-Files, the X-Files can come out.
We're
gonna vote. We're gonna vote in Angel instead. So
Angel is just. I'm just gonna wrap Angel into Buffy. I'll watch it all together.
Oh, perfect! You're already stuck with it. All right.
But that's with me. So come check it out, and then you can follow the podcast anywhere at Essential Scares. We're active on Instagram and Twitter. We also have a Facebook page and a Facebook group and a Discord. If you want to come by, say hi. We watch movies every Wednesday together and chat. It's a fun time, and if you're not in there to watch those with us, why?
Be better.
Come answer in the Discord.
Yeah. Just why?
Oh, man. But, gents, I think that's it for the week. That wraps us up. Thank you to everybody for watching. If you liked the show, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe, share with your friends. And, hey, next week, we're going to talk about the brand new Candyman, and I cannot wait. Thank you to Alan, Bobby, and Taylor for being on the show this week. I've been your host, Corbin, and this has been Essential Scares.
I have played. I have that breakdown, baby.